the Deputy Attorney General who gave us Mueller upon his own authority with direction from no one. And then he should fire Mueller and challenge all comers at that point to impeachment if they think they have grounds, which they don't. This is a benign tumor. This is a time bomb in which the fuse has already been lit. Mueller will find some bogus charge against the president in the hopes that they will win the House in 18 and therefore have the votes to impeach.
And they admit that's their plan.
Yes, pretty much. I mean, they have yet to find a crime, so they're going to seek to manufacture one. Now, looking into the finances of the president and his family prior to the time he was a candidate for president, on what authority? It just shows you the desperateness of the ruling clique and the neocons to remove Trump before he, God knows, makes America great again.
Stay there before we have our next guest on, who was in the secret committee hearings in Congress, being accused of being a Russian last week. Stay there, Roger. I know you're at the airport, but do 5 more minutes with us because this is such an amazing time. Folks, tell people to tune in. It's an info war. It's do or die. All right, we got 5 more minutes left with Roger Stone. Then his associate, another evil patriot that helped bring the country back from the brink of destruction, who just testified secretly in Congress last week, will be joining us. In fact, we may just keep him on a little bit with us. He's now telling us via text message so that he can help me interview Caputo. But continue. I mean, this is obviously Trump gearing up, realizing that the fuse has been lit on this metastasizing cancer. How long does he have?
Well, Alex, first of all, let me apologize to the listeners. This reminds me of when the president called you when you were trying to go through TSA at the airport, and there's nothing so officious as a Canadian with a badge. So I apologize for the disjointed nature of this, but I've got a few minutes here, and I really think we're reaching a crucial point here where Mueller and Rosenstein have to be discharged. This is a lingering malignant cancer, as I said earlier. The president has a support, I believe, among the American people right now. Everybody's ignoring the rising economy and the other leading indicators that show that America is on its way back. They don't report it, but I think the American people are beginning to feel it. I think the president's never been stronger. And this was a plot by Rosenstein. This was their fail-safe. They want to do nothing short of reversing the results of the 2016 elections. What they could not accomplish at the ballot box, they now want to accomplish by fiat.
And they now admit that. What do you make of the New York Post reporting that Obama had a martial law plan for after the election, had the military standing by to basically take over the state houses?
You know, many patriots said this before the election, and many of those were people who were well-connected sources of InfoWars. I had a tendency to discount it at the time, but I was completely wrong. The arrogance, the sense of entitlement of the neocon left is beyond anything I've ever seen. They were going to save the country by declaring martial law and suspending all the Constitution and all our civil liberties, just in case Donald Trump won.
But they choked.
I guess they did choke, but that's because his win had to be so overwhelming. Look at it this way. As you pointed out earlier on the program, we just have the tip of the edge of the massive voter fraud that went on. If you calculate that into the election returns, you will begin to realize that Trump won so overwhelmingly that they could not steal it.
It was such a mega landslide, and Hillary reportedly, now confirmed, collapsed that night, and their own people just said, this is too crazy. This woman's insane. The Pentagon was going to fight them on it, and so they backed down. Now they're trying to reorganize. It's not going to work.
I think that's exactly right. And we know that they began pushing the phony Russian collusion delusion within 48 hours of the election. The arch criminal John Podesta, bad news for him yesterday, the Russian company associated with Putin that gave him 75,000 very valuable shares he didn't disclose in his required financial disclosures with the U.S. government, has collapsed. And they say Trump was in bed with the Russians? No, it was Podesta, Hillary, Bill, Chelsea, Tony Podesta in bed with the Russians. Their phony narrative is collapsing before our very eyes.
It's just wild. We're going to go to break. And we're going to introduce a gentleman who was where you were going to be last week testifying. They chickened out on you and had their secret testimony to only slander our next guest. Stay with us, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Alex Jones. Infowars.com is our website. PrisonPlanet.com is the backup. StoneColdTruth.com is Rogers. The enemy hates it when you tell people about the website or you spread the link. It's forbidden fruit. So Michael Caputo joins us. We've got Roger Stone at the airport riding shotgun because he's an expert on this. It was Stone and others that told me a long time ago, Anthony Scaramucci, they've been trying to run him out. He goes in as communications director. Get ready for all the neocons and the moles to be taken out and removed. Spicer just jumped ship. You notice the New York Times had the scoop first, and the Daily Beast, he was leaking it all to them first. The only misjudgment of Trump was not getting rid of him sooner. Good Lord. Good Lord. Michael Caputo, again, testified in secret. They asked for it. Stone was going to do it, but they canceled it. They won't give him a transcript. But now they're putting out supposedly what he said and then suddenly not having him back on the cable news shows so he can respond. So here he is at InfoWars, Michael Caputo, politicsny.net. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, thanks, Alex, for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
Well, we appreciate you. Please just tell folks what they need to know about the committee and why you're in major news publications like the Washington Post. Former Trump campaign consultant warns president's surrogates away from House intel probe.
Well, I'll tell you, I went into this thing with my eyes open. On March 20th, Representative Jackie Speer of Oakland, California, brought my name into a live televised open House Intelligence Committee hearing, and also brought my wife into this. For some reason, I still can't figure out. You know, my wife is Ukrainian, not Russian. And anybody who knows anything about world politics, they know that Ukrainians aren't, if you're married to a Ukrainian, that is not an avenue toward Putin.
No, it just means you have good taste in women.
That's right. Well, she apparently is not really well apprised. I bet she couldn't tell Ukraine and Russia apart on a map. But she went out there, dragged my wife in. So I immediately moved to, I insisted that I wanted another open hearing on television, live on television to avenge my wife and to set the record straight. But they refused to give me an open hearing. In fact, they're refusing to give any of us an open hearing now, not even Roger, Paul, Manafort, or anybody. And so I decided to cooperate anyway. I'm excited to get my 2 cents in to try to prove this Russian collusion delusion is a false narrative. I went in there. I actually thought it felt pretty fair. I mean, the Democrats were assertive, not aggressive. Representative Schiff was not rude to me. He treated me like a gentleman. I had high hopes for the results of this. I fully disclosed that I had absolutely no discussion with any Russians during the campaign, that I knew of no discussion with Russians. We didn't even, speak about Russia even once during the entire time I was with the campaign. I feel it's an insult, but it's also impossible that Donald Trump would even consider doing such a thing or even allow it in his midst or around him, this kind of, treason. He wouldn't allow it. So I thought it was a solid meeting. And then after, when I come out, Jackie Speer couldn't be bothered to attend. In fact, only 4 members attended, 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans. Jackie Speer couldn't even be bothered to attend. But when she got back to Washington after having her weekend in California, she decided to tell CNN that I may have lied under oath at the committee hearing, even though she didn't attend, and there still is no transcript not available to her or to me. So that speculation is a violation of the confidentiality of this process. It's certainly a violation of House ethics. And I'll tell you, even though I felt good about this in the beginning, my advice to Roger Stone and everybody else in this whole situation is to stay away from a closed hearing, because it's really just a rigged game.
Well, I agree. And, I've got your statement printed out here. If you've got it, you're welcome to read it out, because, again, they want to do this in secret. Even back when they had the Red Scare hearings, which I think got out of hand some, but there were real communist Russian Soviet agents back then. And 15 years ago, the Russians declassified a lot of their files and showed that McCarthy was pretty much on target. But I do think he violated some people's rights. But he did those hearings in public. This is so next-level cowardly to do it in private, keep the transcript secret, and then let people selectively use the transcript but not give it to you, the accused, while Maxine Waters and everybody runs around insane, you know, saying, quote, if you talk to a Russian, you're a Russian agent.
Yeah, it's amazing just how foolish this has gotten. And I'll tell you, yesterday morning, my attorney sent a letter to the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence telling them that we want my transcript released to the public now, unredacted, unclassified. We didn't discuss anything that we thought was classified. We want that out there so I can have Representative Jackie Spear point to the section where she thinks I lied. I mean, how would she know? She wasn't there, and there is no transcript, so she's operating just on her own, delusions. But if they don't do it, I can't see how this could be fair at all. Listen, it's entirely possible that Representative Jackie Spear is the Fredo of the House Intelligence Committee, and that all of her brothers on the committee are upset about how she's embarrassed the family. And they can send her out to Vegas, whatever it takes to get her out of the mix. But Fredo has messed this up now. And even though she's the dullest knife in that drawer, they need to do something to fix it. And the only way to get my reputation back is to reveal that testimony in its entirety and have Jackie Spear point to the section where she thinks I lied.
It's incredible. I mean, this is criminal in our judicial system and our congressional legislative system if they don't do this. I've studied our political system, and I can't find times where there are closed-door sessions and then they don't release the transcript to everybody and then accuse someone of lying and then not say where you lied. It's beyond Kafka.
I agree with you, but I got to tell you, I think even Representative Schiff and Swilwell and others, they probably are pretty upset about this because it puts the lie to their entire process. If they are trying to pull a rig game and make it look like it's fair and decent on its face, like they were to me in the hearing, she just blew their cover. This thing is rigged. There's no question about it because she said that, read me out on CNN earlier this week, calling me, saying that I may have lied in the hearing. She's just, all of the facts that she read out around as she was discussing me on CNN were also flawed. I mean, she doesn't even get her facts straight. She said that in 2004, in a guest op-ed in the Washington Post, that I had said that I had worked with Vladimir Putin. Also, another lie. If she read that op-ed in 2004, she would have understood that.
Just because they read something in a fake newspaper like the New York Times or Washington Post doesn't mean it's true. I mean, I've got right here, Madam President, where Hillary got elected president, according to Newsweek magazine. It's not true. I saw you on Tucker Carlson, and from my research of the whole Russiagate, it was absolutely the best testimony I've seen where you talked about, of course the Russians are trying to influence. Everybody does. We do it. I was sent in by the Clintons to actually keep Yeltsin in power. Rehash some of that.
That's absolutely true.
Rehash some of that, but also, why were you picked when clearly you have a great record of serving this country? Why were you just picked out of the air to be the sacrificial lamb?
Well, I'll tell you. You mean for this hearing or to go to Russia?
Just everything. Yeah, the whole Russia canard.
Well, I'll tell you. I was in 1994. I had worked as one of the press agents for Bush Quail 92. We had gotten beaten by the Clintons, and the wall had fallen. And I had worked for many years in the Reagan doctrine programs, trying to have put away this kind of communist conspiracy internationally. And it was interesting to watch it all fall. And I wanted to go watch it fall in Russia. I didn't know much about Russia, so I told the agency that I was available, Agency for International Development. I may not have been their first choice because I was a Republican, but I was, I came with some credentials working with youth. I had worked in Rock the Vote, United States, trying to get young people to vote. And the real problem in Russia was that young people who were all supporters of Boris Yeltsin were not voting.
You were a young, successful political operative that had worked with the MTV, right. You name it, bipartisan. They sent you in.
Right. And so I started, my first job when I went in there on behalf of the Clinton administration, paid by the United States Agency for International Development, was to help develop and pass an election law that would bring democracy about in Russia. It was a difficult process. I did it in several states of Russia as well. Once we got the election law passed, I went to work to get Rock the Vote Russia going, trying to get rock and roll bands to get involved in a program to promote voting as a civic duty for young people, because we knew that young people were 85% pro-Yeltsin. It was very successful. It was a great
Sure, so how did they turn that, and obviously above your agency that program was known to being run by the State Department and CIA. So they have your file. They know exactly what you did. Speak to that, please, because they're the ones trying to drag you into.
It's really just about sound bites and getting another story out there and trying to extend this bogus Russia collusion delusion as long as they can. That's all it's about.
So they're so desperate, they go after people that are part of State Department, CIA programs to keep a pro-America guy installed and democratize Russia. And that's your clear pedigree, and they turn that around that you're the best they've got as the proof of Russian collusion.
Well, also, Alex, that was the 1990s. In 2000, when Vladimir Putin took over the reins of the Russian Federation, I moved home to America. Now, I did a couple more things on behalf of Russian companies, but I never did any work for Russia for Vladimir Putin. And Representative Jackie Spear's initial insult to me was that I was Putin's image maker. She absolutely doesn't understand Russian politics, U.S.-Russia diplomacy, and doesn't understand what PR is about or who I was representing and when. But it was just about extending the bogus Russia collusion delusion as long as possible. Meanwhile, my wife and I are enduring death threats from people who hear her talking about me as a traitor on national television, and it's just getting worse and worse. I'm not going to sit around, Alex, and wait to be the next person who gets shot by a Democrat campaign volunteer who's all twisted up about this bogus Russia stuff.
By the way,
I'm not waiting around for that.
Exactly. Michael Caputo, the reason I raised that is I have these people come up to me and scream, F you, Russian spy. Once me and Roger were doing an interview in a hotel lobby, it's on video, the guy walks up like he was bowed up, and I bowed up, and I said, let's go. And, of course, he backed off. But these people are crazy. Let's bring Roger Stone in, who's sitting on the line. I wanted to hold him over because he's an expert on this as well. Roger, what are some angles I haven't hit with Mr. Caputo?
Two simple reasons. One, because he'd been in Russia, he'd lived there. And secondly, because he had a Ukrainian wife. There's no evidence whatsoever that ties him to any connection or communications with the Russian state or any Russian nationals during this election. Sadly, the other reason I think they targeted him because he is a longtime trusted friend of mine. We worked together for Ronald Reagan. We worked together for Jack Kemp. And I know he is a solid guy with a very big following at WBEN there in Buffalo, where he does conservative commentary. But this is nothingness. They had no probable cause, no reason to drag him before the committee other than to smear him.
Well, also, the cover of Time has Donnie Jr. on it with a little Hitler mustache they put on, and it says, caught red-handed. Russia's not red anymore. But it's also been the Democrats that were always in bed with the Russians when they were communist. I just don't see this dog hunting. Michael Caputo of PoliticsNY.net, the latest target of the whole Russia hysteria. Folks just joined us. He testified in secret in Congress. It was supposed to be in secret. No transcript was given to him, and now they have a congresswoman who wasn't even there running around saying he perjured himself. True defamation, where a man can't even defend himself, but he's here doing it, despite the fact there's no record. He's called for the record to be released. 6% of Americans in a Gallup poll last week think Russia is important. 90+% believe it is a hoax. Don't the Democrats know this is a losing narrative?
Well, I'll tell you, I don't think it matters to them at all. They've lost all reason in this situation. I mean, this is really a very successful gambit on their behalf to try and delay the president's agenda. He hasn't been able to get footing on a lot of important issues because of this Russia collusion delusion. And the problem, I think, is they don't know how to stop. Somebody's already gotten shot because of their strategy, Representative Scalise and others on that baseball diamond in Alexandria, and they're pretending they have nothing to do with it. And somehow or another, the media is letting them get away with it. It's going to happen again. Somebody else is going to get shot because these people are spinning up their base. They're frothing up their base, and they know they are. And always, when you froth up your base, the bad apples are going to come to the top, and they're going to buy guns, and they're going to shoot people. And I'm tired of her running my name and my wife's name out in the middle of all this with absolutely no proof, and now by violating the confidentiality of the hearing process. Nobody should go before the House Intelligence Committee in a closed hearing at all, because they are going to get the exact same treatment I got. They're going to get set up, at least by Jackie Spear, as they let Fredo back in the hearing room.
The minutes we have left with you, since you raised that, I mean, here's an example of what they do. Trump's walking around at the beginning of the G20 meeting, a week and a half ago. He gets out of the limo, goes in, there's a refreshment area. He walks over, shakes Putin's hand in front of cameras. Everybody's shaking each other's hands. He shook 30-something hands walking in of other world leaders and their wives and dignitaries and ambassadors. He walks over, they talk a few minutes. They say that's dirty and evil. Then he has his meeting. They imply that, oh, he did a horrible job and he was a traitor. When he has the Russian ambassador to the White House, which is normal, they say it's a secret meeting. He gave up secret info when it had been in the news 2 months that the ISIS is using laptop bombs and been in the cover of USA Today. So he says, hey, let's work together to stop ISIS. That's known we're doing that. Then on the last night, the G20 seats him next to the Japanese leader. His wife gets seated next to Putin. They wave and talk to each other across it. He goes over and talks to them in front of everyone about pleasantries, and they call it more sedition or espionage. So you're right. The agenda isn't sold with the people, but they don't care. It's about hobbling the president with the bureaucracy where he can't engage in foreign executive operations, and where he's suspect if he talks to the Russian leader at a public dinner that he's supposed to. I mean, I think he should do his own meeting in Reykjavik like Reagan did with Gorbachev and get it in everybody's face and break the back of this. What do you say?
I think they should do some one-on-one basketball shirtless. I mean, I don't care what they do. The one thing Lavrov says, they may have had more meetings. They may have even gone to the bathroom together. I mean, it's ridiculous. Let me tell you something, Alex. One thing most Americans don't know is we have hundreds, quite literally hundreds, of Russians who are now Russian Americans, people who had emigrated to the United States, who have the highest level of security clearance in our government, in our law enforcement, in our intelligence agencies, in our Treasury Department, all over the place. And they're doing yeoman's work. They're doing excellent work for our country. They're as loyal as anybody else. They are Russian Americans, and they have top secret special information clearances. And if someone talking to a Russian waitress or someone waving at each other across a reception of world leaders is evidence of collusion, then we better start looking at our own intelligence agencies, our own law enforcement agencies, our own administration departments with excellent Russian American.
Well, let's expand on that. We've got a great person who came here when she was a little girl from Russia to get away from the communism. She was in Army Special Operations, highest level clearances, but again, she can't be trusted either. See, because she's an evil Russian.
It's outrageous, and if this doesn't sound more and more like the McCarthy hearings, I don't know what it does. I mean, I'll tell you, when I sat in that hearing, I have not talked about it because they asked me not to, even though Jackie Spear has already talked about it. I've talked to my attorney. Maybe I'll start releasing more information. But the one thing that did happen in that hearing is they asked me a long litany, a list of names. And they asked me, do you know this person? Do you know that person? I would go, no, yes. And the longer this list got and the more I heard it, it sounded more and more like the McCarthy hearing.
Well, sure, but Trump is well known to all world leaders to pat him and say, hey, we're going to work together and try to sell them on stuff that's good for the U.S. I mean, he points at Russia, points at himself, does his hand, shaking a fist like we're together. Of course, he's saying we're going to work together because Russia's free market now. They're anti-radical Islam. What is this obsession in D.C. with continuing Russia as the boogeyman when it's the communist Chinese, the CIA admits, have 100 times the influence of the Russians?
Alex, I'll tell you, if the Disney World in Florida were some kind of an evil incarnate, they would be wiping the floor with Disney World right now and Mickey Mouse because Donald Trump once went there. It doesn't matter who this is, whether it's Russia, Mickey Mouse, Venezuela, Fort Wayne, Indiana. They will tar the president with whatever they have. It doesn't matter what it is. They got some traction with the Russia thing because the negativity that's out there.
And it's all they've got, and they're not going to stop pushing.
That's it. That's all they got, and in the end, it's going to dissipate to nothingness. But as you mentioned at the top of the broadcast, they're already expanding this investigation well beyond Russia, and that's where it was all.
That's my final question, and please come back. What do you think, Mr. Caputo, Trump should do? I mean, I think he should fire Mueller, fire the Deputy Attorney General, all of them.
Well, I got to tell you, I'm a little dicey about firing Mueller. I do think that he should separate this investigation, all the discussions of it, out into an external unit. He's already doing that, but also stick to it. We saw too many questions about the Russia investigation and the White House press briefing. Absolutely build a wall between the two of them and move forward and start driving his agenda forward. And if Mueller gets out of line, like he's already, the president has already drawn that red line, it's time to consider whether or not this investigation.
No, I mean, Mueller announced he's going to see if Trump's crap stinks today. I mean.
Yep. But the question that we really have to have here is, these investigations on the on Capitol Hill are political entirely, and it's all about playing gotcha.
Of course it is. Michael, if you've got to go, that's fine. I appreciate 20 minutes. If you can come back and do 5 more and one more question from Roger, that's fine. Let me know during the break. But regardless, very important information. Thanks for giving us a window into this deep witch hunt. I'm Alex Jones, Infowars.com. His site, need to check it out. We'll give it to you on the other side. It's politicsny.net. All right, Roger Stone is about to take off. This is the Alex Jones Show. So I'm going to skip the intro. Michael Caputo is our guest for a few more minutes to talk about where he sees all this going and how they're trying to block the president's agenda, politicsny.net. But, Roger, your plane's about to take off. They're telling you to turn the phone off. Any other questions or comments for Michael Caputo?
Yeah, Michael, I'm curious what you thought of Congresswoman Spears' claim last week that she cannot be sued and that there is no way to hold her responsible for the outrageous and defamatory claim she's made against you, never mind me, saying that I worked for the Kremlin. To me, that doesn't seem right. My lawyers are examining it. I know a member is protected when they speak on the House floor, but when they go outside, when they go on CNN, for example, and say that you have committed perjury, a crime, can they be held responsible? What's your lawyer's reading?
My lawyers are looking at it as well because, as you know, both of us were trampled by her outside of the halls of Congress, outside of her office. But there is some indication that the congressmen can do whatever they want as long as they're pursuing House business. And it's not clear whether that's true or not. My attorneys are still checking it out. But she's vulnerable on a lot of fronts, Roger. You know, a lot of this stuff is an ethical violation. The things that she's doing are against the code of the confidentiality of the hearings themselves. Literally, quite literally, this is the Fredo of the Intelligence Committee.
Well, this is all part of the leaking culture. Look at Spicer leaking to the Daily Beast, leaking to the New York Times before the president even knew. I mean, what does that say about Spicer?
And, you know, the problem we have here is that this isn't even leaking. This is point blank, flat out announcing. It's not even leaking it.
Exactly. It's worse.
The matter is, there's nothing to leak because there is no transcript. There's nothing to give someone. She's basically just lying in front of America.
She uses the secrecy to make up the fiction.
That's absolutely true. That's the same thing she did with Rogers, saying that he was on the payroll of the Kremlin. I mean, the problem she has is that she lives in the delusion, and that she's trying as hard as she can to maintain a high profile through this whole collusion investigation. That's all she's got. Nobody knows who she is, and she's just really not that bright, and she's making mistakes right and left. And in my eyes, in a lot of ways, she's in the jackpot herself for the things she said about myself and Roger and other people.
Well, sure, it's like the lady on the Federal Election Commission saying I'm a Russian agent, and it turns out she gets all this money from 22 foreign governments. It's totally illegal. And Hillary going to Morocco and getting $12 million while she's the Secretary of State. I mean, these people are literally what they accuse us of. Roger, we'll talk to you soon. Get that plane. Thank you, Roger. There goes Roger Stone. Michael Caputo, we were talking during the break, and I said, wow, that's powerful testimony. Can you repeat to the viewers and listeners what you were saying during the break about what their real agenda is and what could fix things versus what they're attempting right now?
Sure. In my opinion, I think this is shared by a lot of people. The whole Russia investigation is designed to delay or even stop the president's agenda. And in fact, while the president won election in November, the Democrats have won the first year, no question. They've stalled him completely. As a cynical political operative, I would say what they decided to do, they've succeeded tremendously at. But as an American, I really feel fear for the Republic. In my opinion, this is very clearly it's a silent coup, if nothing else. I mean, the problem we have is this. They're not stopping. Even though somebody gets shot because of what they've done, one of their own colleagues, and they're not stopping. And we look at Alinsky's book and others, the one chapter that they always forget to write is, when do you stop? When do you stop? They're not stopping. And the fact of the matter is, maybe this will burn them themselves. They'll burn themselves by going so far that they lose the 2008 election because they have made complete fools of themselves. Or they could go the other direction and be a complete conflagration. You know, the one thing that everyone who's listening can do that is important to do is to call your Republican representatives and tell them that you support the president and thank you for supporting the president. Because what the left is trying to do is separate the Congress from the president and make them too fearful to vote for his agenda, and it's working.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what the whole agenda by Soros is spending hundreds of millions, he admitted, sending out AstroTurf when they come back to their districts later next month to get in their face and to have robocalls and all this. So now more than ever, folks, we ask for a president to fight globalism, to defend our borders, to get our jobs back. It's happening. They're going, oh, look, he's failed at tax cuts and Obamacare. Well, not for trying. And so it's our failure not backing him enough. You want to look in the mirror, and I'm not bitching at the listeners, but here's the bottom line. I'm in this fight 18 hours a day. And I know the Russia thing is baloney because they had congressional hearings 4 months ago and again a week ago where they have armed services committees where they have people on there, former Board of Governors, FCC, saying Alex Jones works for the Kremlin and Hillary just says I do. It's like saying, you know, that I'm a Martian and the moon's made of cheese. I know none of it's true. I know I've never gotten Russian money. I know the Russians don't tell me what to say. I've never been to Russia. And it's just very, very frustrating to sit here. It's almost comical, but it's almost like I'm in a bad dream or something to watch Armed Services Committee hearings. And then I realize, listen, this is just about intimidating people. They know it's bull. And then what do you call these un-American groups that have hijacked the country, these foreign multinational special interests, pointing at us and saying we're foreign influenced because they're the globalists. They are the outsiders. They are the subverters that don't want to make America great again. It couldn't be clearer. A final comment on that, Mr. Caputo.
Well, I'll tell you, it's absolutely true. And these are the people who are behind the Russia delusion, the ones who are delaying the president's agenda. But there's nothing wrong with the president's agenda, the White House administration. There's nothing wrong with Congress that 3 to 4% growth across 6 months couldn't fix. 3 to 4% gross domestic product. We have not had any healthy growth at all since Barack Obama was in office. He inherited a terrible economy, but he never fixed it either. If Trump fixes it, and he's working on, I'm telling you, his regulatory reform, his muscular energy policy is very promising. And if they manage to take apart Obamacare and kill the job-killing taxes that come along with it, we're going to see some economic growth. And if it gets to be in the 3 to 4% range, it's difficult to do. But if it does, I mean, he spends it for 6 months, he's